Hey everybody, it's Kate Richbourg, and today is Sunday, September 6th, and it is that time for my Create with Kate Richbourg broadcast, the part 2 of our charms and connectors and centerpiece series, I guess is what I want to say. So let's see if I've got some people watching. Just jump in and let me know if you can hear me, and I will pop in right now. Here I am. All righty, you guys. It's great to have everybody here. Give me a shout out or hello. Let me know that you can hear me so that my audio is good. Good. Okay, sound is good. Thank you, Linda, for letting me know. Perfect. I just want to make sure that all of you all can hear me and see me before we get going. I'm going to lift my camera here. If you are watching me on through my Facebook group, Create with Kate Richbourg, do remember to enable StreamYard as an app so I can see that it's you, because if you don't enable it, I just see you as Facebook user who just said hello to me. So hello, but I don't know who it is, as opposed to Lynn, who is saying, whoops, no, that's not it. Here we go. As opposed to Lynn, who I can see. Perfect. And there's my dear Mama. Hello, Mama. There we are. All righty. Well, good morning, everyone. Today, we are going to do some soldering, and we're going to do part 2 of this kind of fun piece that I've got going on here. I'm going to show you guys this real quick so you can see it. I'm going to move this camera over so you can kind of see the piece here that I've got for you. Let me make sure that I'm underneath it. There we go. Let me add that so you guys can see this is the piece that we're going to be working on today right here. And you remember that from part 2, right? When I used this die, right, to create it. And this is a Potter impression die. And you can go back and watch the part 1 from this, okay, to see how I did that. But today we're going to connect these together. Okay, so I'm going to show you that. Also, I'm going to show you, though, before we get started too much with the soldering. My mom will recognize this book. I think my mom will, because it's a book that really whoops, there we go. Sorry about that. Let me do this. That's what I want. Can you guys hear me? You can still hear me okay, I think. And let me get rid of this banner. Bear with me here just a second. Let me get rid of that. Okay, so if my mom will remember, she bought this for my grandpa way back in the day. This is a 1908 Sears Roebuck catalog, treasured replica from the archives of history, right? So my mom bought this for my granddad for, I don't know, his birthday or for something. I can't remember what it was, but I loved it so much. And I spent a lot of time when I was a little kid going through it, okay? And so I wanted to show you one of the things that I think influenced my making as an adult, and something that I still refer to, okay? And I bet that you can find something like this on the internet, I would think. So this is a complete replica of the 1908 Sears and Roebuck catalog, okay? So as I was looking through it when I was little, I would go to the different places in the catalog. And one of the things that really caught me, can you guys see this? when I was like, I don't know, 10, whatever it was, that Sears and Roebuck on page 258 would sell watchmakers, wire worker, and jewelers' tools and materials, right? My mom said she got it from for Christmas, right? So can you see how right here on this page, on page number 258, you could get all of these tools, this whole setup price for complete set, including textbook, was $7.12, right? And you'd get files, and you'd get, look at that jeweler saw right there, and you'd get like a divider and some tweezers. That's a vise for twisting wire. So you get all of this stuff, right? Wasn't that cool? And then here's the wire worker, and you remember, I don't know if you guys remember this, right? But you can see, whoops, that's not what I want. I want to, hang on a second. We've got someone here that I'm going to boot from, hang on, and save. There we go. Goodbye. Easy as pie. That's why I love this new platform. So bear with me here just a second. So you remember here, I'm going to get in a little closer, right, to this. You remember those pins, those like vintage brooches, right, from way back? My gran had one. I showed it to you on the broadcast that I did a few weeks ago with my treasure necklace, right? And it has, you know, it has the little mother of pearl shell and then people's name on it. And Gran said Rose, right? This was the tool, wire artists or wire workers tool set for $1.18, right? And look, you get the wire twister, you get a little box of shells, and you get the tools. And you can see, look at, there's Bessie's, there's Anna, right? Isn't that amazing? I just, oh God, I love it. So all of this to say, I think that books and old books are a great inspiration for you and to you, right? And so this, as I'm thinking about this piece here, right? This piece that I've got right here, the one that I did out of the die, and we're going to make it into a pendant like this. Okay, I know, Eileen, those prices, right? This whole wire worker outfit for $1.18. No wonder that you could, you know, that you could, what do I want to say? Get started in jewelry making, right? Yeah, totally. Bessie is a very 1900s name, right? So, dear Bessie, there she is, and you got the shells. Send us $1.18 and we will ship you by worker's outfit, by express, our entire wire worker's outfit exactly as illustrated. I just love it. I love it so much. So one of the things so this really influenced my love of jewelry very early on. But one of the other things, and I've got a couple of books, another book that I'm going to show you, but this one, let me get my little, yes, I made this out of Christmas ribbon, right? It's been in this bookmarked in this book for however many years, right? So my granddad would keep this kind of with like special books. My mom would always get him kind of interesting books, right? So I would just steal it and I would look at the jewelry. Let me get past the watch section. Here we go. And let's get to the chain and connectors section, right? So yeah, it's true. Our earning levels were a little lower than 2. It's true. We can't have it both ways, can we? So look at these connectors. So a lot of these, if you're familiar with the Kevin Potter dies, right, like this, this is the way that these pieces were struck, okay? So I know I have a locket die here somewhere. Let me see if I can find one. Bear with me here just a second. Here it is. So it's right here, okay? And this, you may even recognize this die, right? It's 2 hearts. It's a little bit later, probably around the 40s, I think this one is. But it's 2 hearts here, right? And you can see, but that's how these pieces were struck. Okay, so I think what's kind of interesting to look at these old catalogs and stuff to see how things were connected, right? So if we're talking about connectors, so something like this with this piece here that has this chain, you can see here it's just a little round ball with a loop that connects to chain. This is like a little filigree piece. I must have a die that's kind of similar to that. I don't know. You could cut out a die or do something like that, right? It would have to kind of be the same idea, but right, you'd cut it out and then you'd solder a ring or something to it. But so I was looking, when I was looking for inspiration on how to pull this piece together, okay? So you want to, I was looking at, like, you know, connectors and how they're seated, right? Look at this one over here. I think this one's really pretty. This kind of little flourish, and it has this kind of, what I want to say, a little arch that has a loop onto it, then it connects to a bail. A lot of these just simple lockets like this have a loop on top, and then it looks like a heavier gauge loop going the opposite way. So that might be a good way to do the connector on this. But I thought it was kind of cool to share with you. And you can see here's some others, and you can see that the chain. I like also seeing the silhouette of the chain. But back in the vintage day, right? Oh, I think that is, I believe that's Bart coming up there. Hello, Bart, it's good to have you. So see here how that loop is a little bit of a heavier gauge on there. And again, just simple. So some of these vintage ones just had simple connectors to them. Okay, I have another book to share with you guys before we get going. Let me put my beloved 1908 catalog to the side. And this was one, you remember back when we could go into bookstores? I know it seems like forever, right? I'm a big fan of the remainder table in bookstores, and those of you who have worked in bookstores know what the remainder table is, but essentially it's books that are going out of print, or too many that have been in print or whatever, and the remainder, they're put on sale, right? And so this is a remaindered one that I got, I couldn't tell you how long ago, forever ago, and I probably got it here in the Bay Area. I probably got it at Books Incorporated. That's where I got it, and it's called Victorian Jewelry. And it's all illustrated. It's all line drawings. And the it's, you can see it's Portland House. It's a Random House book, and it's called Victorian Jewelry. You might still be able to find it, right? So here, I wanted to show you guys this page because I thought that this also illustrates chains and connections in the vintage style, if we're doing kind of a vintage style. And I don't really know where this piece is gonna end up, right? But let me see if I can get this into view so you can see it. There we go. So see how these connectors, look at that. Like if I put our friend, the concho, and this concho, it has a Western kind of a feel, but it also has a very Victorian feel to it because it has some engraving and stuff on it. So I think that you could push it wherever you wanted to push it. So look at this one, like with this ribbon scroll work here, and then just a little loop is connected. So you can do this kind of little kind of crest or shield kind of thing. Or you can also see something that's trending right now that is super, super popular is what's called paperclip chain. And paperclip chain is exactly this chain right here. It's an oval. So I'm thinking about making actually chain for this. So we'll see. If I make it, I'll continue it with the demo. But paperclip chain, it's this chain right here. What is Old, my mom read my mind. What's old is new again. You were typing it, Ma, just as I was saying it. You can also see some of these chain links are twisted here, twisted chain links. So these old kind of interesting, look at these different like watch fobs and things like that. I just think they're really cool. So some of these old books really give you some good ideas to bring some of that vintage sensibility that I love so much into this piece. These are lockets here, and you can see some of this kind of delicate scroll work up on the top, something like this. Look at that connector. Let me get a little tighter in here so you can see this one. See how that one has like a little scroll here and then kind of a little half jump ring up there to connect it. So I love my books. I get a lot of inspiration from them, and this one's a good one that I've had in my collection forever and ever. So so that's it. So I wanted to share those two with you. Let me get this out of the way. And for now, though, let's see how we're going to actually connect these two and put these two together. Okay, so let me get a little closer here so you can see this. I have a random Amazonite tiny 4mm cab on my work table. What a surprise. Let me put that over to the side. So one of the things I have to do for this piece is, you remember last time, this is so flush I can't even pick it up, which is a good thing. Last time I filed this flush, file, so it was super flush like this, right? And then I double checked the fit all the way around. So you can see that it's flush all the way. Now, what we need to do here with this before we solder, we need to put a vent hole in the back. And I didn't stamp anything on the back yet. I thought I'd do that in front of you so you guys can see it. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to put the hole in this piece. Okay, and I thought that it would be kind of a good way to show you how I do it. So I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to freehand this. I mean, there's a lot of ways, you know, you could get a circle finder and all that kind of stuff. But what I'm going to do, when I'm trying to do something kind of quickly, kind of on the fly, like I'm doing now, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab my permanent marker. I want a skinny one. Here's one, skinny one. And I'm going to grab my ruler. And I'm going to come in and I'm going to, I want this side. I'm going to try and find the center here. That looks like it's about right. Let's take a look. Nope, I'm completely off. What a surprise. What a surprise. In that case, let me, oh, you know, I have this little handy dandy thing. I'm going to use this instead. Hang on. Alice asked me, what gauge am I using? I knew you guys were going to ask me. I should have checked it. I'm going to polish this off anyway. It'll come off when I torch it. But I do have my handy dandy gauge, metal gauge, so I can double check. I think I used 22. Maybe I used 20. Maybe I used 18. There it is. I used 18 gauge is what I used on this. And you can see that's 18 right there. I'm trying to let it catch. Okay. One essential that I always have here on my table, because people always ask, is this little metal gauge. Now, this is a circle finder here, and you can get little templates and stuff for these, but this is kind of a clever little tool. You can make your own by printing on some clear stock as well. But that'll help me actually find the center perfectly. One of the things that I do, though, and I'll still do this layout, is I'll come in with my Sharpie and a straight edge. And when I am stamping, I'll make my little grid, some little quadrants. Let's see if I can get this straight. It's kind of hard with the camera in the way, but it will help me kind of center everything. And again, these Sharpie marks, and that doesn't look too bad. That looks pretty much in the center. Okay, so there's that. Now I'm going to go ahead and put the hole in the center of this. I'm going to put it right there because this dome, this concho here, you can see how deep this dome is. The rest of this is going to be pretty flush. And I don't really know, like these small little domes, I don't think they need an escape hole. I think we just need one in the center, but that's so deep, so that's where I'm going to put it. Okay, so I'm going to come in, and the tool I'm going to use, I'm going to move my camera over here so you guys can kind of see it. It's a little hard for you to see, but I want to make sure that you can kind of, there we go. That doesn't look too bad. This is a hole punch, also put out by Eurotool, designed by my buddy Eugenia Chen. And Eugenia is a real firebrand, that lovely lady. If you go to any of the Tucson shows, sometimes you see her demonstrating enameling and all kinds of stuff like that. I've showed her on, she's probably on my YouTube channel somewhere, demonstrating some of her techniques. And this is a hole punch that Eugenia designed. And let me pull it out so you can kind of see here why I love it so much. You can see that each of the twist down punches corresponds to a wire gauge. So if I'm using this for riveting, and I need to match my wire, the size of the wire to the rivet, 18, 16, 14, and 12 gauge, right? So I'm going to put my hole probably 16 gauge. I'm not going to make it super tiny, but I'm not going to make it super big either, okay? And I feel that the easiest way to grab this cutter, this punch, is to put it right in my vise, okay, right there. So I'm going to hold that there for a second. What I'm going to do over here, before I do anything else though, so I can figure out where it's going to go, because sometimes I can't see it as well as I need to, I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of a divot right here, right in the center. This is a center punch that I got from my buddy Jim Brandvik. He is horseshoe engraver on, I don't have the link there, I don't think. But I just love his stuff, right? And so this, on Etsy, you can find him as Horseshoe Engraver. If you do join my Facebook group called Create with Kate Richbourg, there I have all of the kind of collateral materials that go along with this project, including all of my resources. Okay, so you can hop over to Facebook and go to right to Create to Kate with Kate Richbourg. This hole punch, you could find it a lot of different places carry this hole punch. You can certainly, I would Google like Eugenia Chen hole punch, or jump over maybe to Micro Tools or to Beaducation. Lisa may carry it over there. I'll put my listing for it over in my resources, but it's a very common, oh, thank you, Linda. You're the best for linking the Horseshoe Engraver. What Jim made, it's a precious little center punch right here. And it's has this nice grip and here, and it comes with this little point cover. I just love it, love it, love it. So I use it a lot. So I'm just going to go ahead and go to the center right here, and I'm going to give myself a little tap, a couple of taps maybe, so I can feel where that indentation is. Okay. Oh, great. You just bought one at Beaducation. Perfect. I would recommend my buddy Lisa, as always, beaducation.com. You can go over and find one of these little babies right there. There we go. Sorry about this wire. Whoops, and of course I dropped it. Hang on. Let me see if I can get this wire out of your view, because it's not pretty. And we want it to look pretty. So let's move that over. There we go. I just need one person here to mind all my cords during my demos, right? So I'm going to come in and I'm going to open up this 16 gauger, and I need to open up the other ones so that the blank will pass through. Okay. There we go. And this one. So I've got clearance here. And as I push down or rotate down the punch, I can kind of feel that divot with the head of my punch. Okay, so once that's in there, I'll just put the Allen wrench in and twist. There we go, it's broken through. And I'm going to twist back. And here we have our little hole right here. It's kind of hard to see. Okay, but it's there. Trust me. So now I'm going to get rid of this guy so it's not in our way. But this is just a clamping table vise. This just clamps right onto my work table. It's super handy. Okay, put it back there. So now I need to get my stool, because when I'm stamping, what I like to do, and that's why I wanted to show you this stamping, because I know that stamping can, I don't know, be not daunting, but it takes a little bit of practice to get to be a good stamper, right? And I have, you guys saw yesterday, not yesterday, last week. I'm gonna put this camera up maybe if I can, all the way. It's hard to see, but I'll show you. There, I have my stamping station. I've got my anvil on a really sturdy base, and that's where I stamp. Okay, but for today, my work table here is pretty sturdy, right? It doesn't have a lot of bounce to it, or it doesn't shake or anything when I work with it. So it's a good sturdy table to stamp on. Okay, so I'm going to get just a little closer. It might get a little loud, so bear with me. If it's too loud, let me know, and I'll mute while I'm stamping. But I want to talk to you while I'm doing it too. So here's a little bench block. Now the bench block, you can stamp on a bench block. I got this, I adore it. This piece here, this is a rail, a piece of trolley rail from 1912 from my buddy Hector Ortega. You can find Hector at Silver Lining Metal Stamps. Over on Instagram. He sells, I have many of his stamps. I adore them. I love this. It's a little tall for my demo, so I'm going to slide this over, and I'm going to use my bench block instead. Okay. That trolley rail was he found it in Arizona, and he made a bunch of really killer stamping anvils for them. He may still have some. I got this a couple months ago, but if you look for Silver Lining Metal Stamps, Hector Ortega, you'll find him. Best place to find him is on Insta, and that's how he sells his stamps and stuff too, from Insta. Okay. So now these lines are straight enough. It's a little off kilter, but I'm not going to worry about it so much. Oh, you've got one of those Hector ones too. I love that rail. It's so super sturdy. I love it. So what I'm going to stamp on the back, I've got a couple things, and I thought I would show you, because stamping your work, you guys, I think is really important to do. And so way back in the day when I was working for Beachucation, it's kind of hard to see with this, but this has my initials. Lisa had them made for us, actually. So this has KFR right here. And then I kind of cobbled together my piece, some stamps that actually Lisa has in stock. You can certainly get like a logo stamp and stuff made. And I do have one actually that has my full name on it right here. You can see it's a Kate Richbourg stamp. This one's from Microstamp USA. And Microstamp is still in business. They're down in Pasadena, California. But I wanted something that kind of looked like my logo a little bit, right? And I just put it up in the corner right there so you can see it, right? And Lisa already had this kind of sun rays stamp, which I love. And she had these little, actually, I don't think this little star is hers, but she does have some different stars as well. So I kind of cobbled together what I wanted to put on the back. So that's kind of how I came up with my stamp. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start by putting my initials on. And I think I'm going to put this in the lower section here. So here's the escape hole. I'm going to put this in the lower section. So I'm going to use, you can see I polished this a little bit with my Pro Polish pad. So I can really kind of, so I have like a little mirror so I can see my letters. You can almost see them in the camera. I also have, if you have trouble stamping and you feel like your stamping never comes out straight, I have some tape here that I want to show you. It was sitting here a second ago. Let me see if I can find it. And the tape has like a little grid on it. And some of you have seen me use this before. I use it for like bezels and stuff too. When I'm measuring bezels. Here's some right here. And so this little grid tape I like a lot because it will also help you if you're like doing individual letter stamping and stuff too. That'll also help you kind of get everything even. So here's my grid. And I'm just gonna actually gonna put this a little bit lower. So it helps you kind of line everything up. Okay, and it also keeps this piece from jumping around. Okay, and I think what I'm going to do, because this is the biggest piece here, and this looks like it fits there perfectly, I'm going to go ahead and stamp the rays first, and then I'll stamp the initial portion. Okay, so that's all down. I'm going to come in. Now, and I can see, I kind of know, you could even mark it if you wanted, and sometimes I've done this too. You can put little registration marks on your stamp, like if that's about the center of where you want things to line up. And then I place this piece of gridded tape kind of underneath the center there. And if I make this registration mark that I made line up with that registration mark on the tape, it should be vaguely center. Okay. And of course, if you're doing this on pieces that are not going to be demo pieces, you can take a lot more care and measure out and do your gridding and everything. So it's exactly right. I'm not going to worry about it too much for this demo. I'm going to use a 1 pound brass hammer. Sometimes I use a 2 pound brass hammer or a 2 pound steel hammer too. Okay. So I'm just going to come in and I'm going to make sure that my stamp face is flush with my metal. Okay. And this stamp, so you can see it one more time, has a lot of detail on it, right? So as I'm stamping, if I just gave it one whack and pulled it up, it wouldn't transfer all the detail of the stamp. Okay. But when I stamp this, I'm going to go ahead and tap, and then I'm going to tilt this stamp to the left, to the right, up and down, and it's going to pick up all of the impression that I've got here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do it. So one in the center, to the left, to the right, up and down and back, one more to the center. My buddy Danny Wade, what he does is he does this kind of triple tap. If you've ever seen Danny stamp, he kind of goes 1, 2, and then bam. That was kind of loud, right? But to and bam, it kind of centers your hammer or your mallet over your stamp. I like that a lot. And you can see here, I've got a nice, clean stamped impression. Okay, so I'm just going to take this up, take the tape up, and slide my blank down. Or slide the tape down the blank to give myself a little more room and try and make sure that it's nice and even here and straight across. That's not quite right. That looks about right. That center line's a little off, so it's throwing me off. Now I'm going to go ahead and put my initials. And the initials, to get them straight, I can just line them up or line that edge up with the tape, and I can see where my center is. I've stamped so much with the stamp that I know it pretty well. It's also good to sometimes do a little dry run if you haven't stamped before. Lately, right? Practice on a little practice piece of metal, get all of your mistakes out before you put it on your piece. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp. And see how I wasn't lifting my mallet up that high over my piece. Again, it's super shiny, so it's hard to see, but you can see there's that. And then I do these kind of free-handed where I put in the stars. So I'm going to put the stars in, and I'm going to put one to the left. And the star is an easy stamper. It's just a tiny little star. One to the right. And then I'm turn it upside down so I can see where the logo is and stamp one at the bottom. Okay, so that's it. All right, there it is. So this is ready to go. Now I've made this maybe a little off kilter by stamping on it. So I want to make sure that I make this all flush. Oh, you hammer like that naturally. Yeah, I learned that from Danny when I think when we were, I don't know, either at Bead Fest or maybe we were in Tucson or something. And he's all, let me show you this trick. And I was like, that's the best trick ever. So, sorry, this hammering's a little loud. But you can see I've now just kind of brought it back into shape. And I want to make sure that I still have this flush. And see how it was super flush, and this isn't quite as flush as it was. So what I'm going to do is, oh, and Tammy, hi Tam, she's also saying aluminum tape is great for mocking up your designs, and that is correct. I have a piece, I have aluminum tape. It's like that, you know, what you use for like vacuuming, what do I want to say? Air conditioning duct work and stuff. It's that thin silver tape, and you can see I've got a sample here. I do it on cards, on cardstock like this, and I stamp in the design, and you can see it's just this like thin aluminum tape. It's not duct tape, but you can get it for duct work, and you can get it just at the hardware store. And I put it on pieces of cardstock, and then I trace out whatever I'm doing here, and I can stamp out my design and stuff. So that's another good little tip. Thanks for reminding me about that, Tam. I'm just going to use my mallet here on the metal, right on the wood of my work table to kind of flatten this out. I'm going to mute myself real quick so it's not super loud, okay? And I'll be right back. There we go. Perfect. And I used my metal, I didn't use a metal hammer, I used my plastic mallet for that. Okay. And Linda's asking, do I just use initials for very small pieces? I do, exactly. And that's why I have several designs, right? I have this, kind of hard to see, but this one fully says Kate Richbourg. I could just use like the stars and this, my initials, or, any kind of mixture of these. So I think it's a good idea to have a variety of things that you can kind of stamp on the back. Your stamp, as long as it's similar, I don't think it has to be exactly the same every time. Okay, as long as it has your initials, or like if you have those little insignias, stuff like that. Okay, so here's this. This is ready to go. We're ready to solder. Okay, and we still have some time. I want to get this soldered today because we're going to move on to next week, whatever we're going to do next with this piece. Okay, so let me bring in the soldering cam. Oh, look, there's all three of us. Let me get this one out of the way, and let me make the soldering camera the big layout, right? And Linda's asking who to get a custom stamp from. I have used, if you join a couple of the different stamping groups, my buddy Danny Wade has a really great stamping group on Facebook. You can also go to, this one is Microstamp USA. You can see it here. I've had this one forever. They also do them. And a few of the stamp makers, like I don't think that Beaducation does custom anymore. You want to be careful who you get your custom ones from. I'll tell you a little story. I got this one and I need to get it redone. I went to just like a random custom stamp maker on Etsy. And I got this one made. It says copper. I like it, but there wasn't a lot of communication around it. So the stamp could have been better. I don't hate it, but I don't love it. So I'm going to have this one redone because I stamped this on my copper bracelets that I use. So I would double check, like with Danny or any of there's a lot of different stamping groups on Facebook. And I'll do some research and drop some good resources in my Create with Kate Richbourg group for you. Okay, so let me get a little closer here so you guys can see this. And here's my soldering surface. Here's my rotating soldering pan here. Okay, and I put the back of my blank. We're going to work on this part first. Okay, and I put it face the show side down like that. And we're going to do a little bit of sweat soldering here. And I'm going to do this with medium. So I've got my solder in this little pill case, and we're going to go to the medium solder. And I'm going to cut some pallions of this solder. And we're going to sweat solder this first. So we're going to place the pallions along this piece so they're placed perfectly. Okay. And then we're going to solder the front onto that. And it's a lot cleaner of a way to do it. Okay, so let me go ahead. Here's my medium solder. I want to, whoops, sorry, I didn't mean to shake that. And I need to turn my camera a little bit so I can see all of you all if you have any questions. So the pallions, I'm going to use this medium solder, and I'm going to come in with my little shears, and I'm going to cut a little fringe or a little bunch of pallions off of there. And I have a little solder holder somewhere here. It's a little tiny. One of my students gave me this. I have no idea what it is. It looks like it belongs in a laboratory of some kind. And years ago, I had a student give me this. I've never found it again. I love it. And I use it to catch my solder pallions. Now I'm using some shears, some Xuron shears here, but you can use any little shears that you might have. I like these for cutting solder because they're so small and they're pretty precise. You get that other one in there. Come on. There we go. Okay. And you can also, I can cut a little fringe here. Linda's also asking why medium versus hard solder. Well, I'm thinking ahead. Okay, so I know that the only thing I'm going to be soldering again on here that's going to have direct contact is the bail, right? I'm not going to solder any other embellishments or things like that on there. So that's why I'm using medium. If I were going to solder embellishments on this guy or something else, or I wasn't really sure what I was going to do, I would definitely solder this with hard. Okay, but since I know I only have one more soldering operation, though I may be kicking myself, tripping myself up on this, but I'm going to go for medium because then I'll only have one more connection that's going to connect to it. Okay, so there's my little fringe, and then I'm going to cut across my fringe, and there are more little pallions. Now, with solder, there's the last one there, across. With solder, you can also get wire solder, you can get paste solder, all kinds of stuff like that, right? So it just depends on what you like to use. But I bought some solder, and I'm going to show you this, that I don't love. It probably has a super specific use, but I'm going to show you. This is chip solder, right, that I got from Rio. This is medium. But what I found, the way I use this is I put several chips together and I ball it up. I feel like the pallions are a little too small. So I use it sometimes, but I don't use it as much. I thought, oh, it's going to save me so much time getting little chips of solder. Yeah, I don't use it as much. Maybe you've had a different experience, but I don't love it. So I just get my sheet solder and make my own little pallions here. Okay, I'm going to put this piece of medium solder back in its little home because if I don't have them color coded. Sometimes those of you who are super clever get a colored permanent marker and color code, or you can stamp with a letter in there too. Like I could stamp a medium on this, right, and it would work. The shears, no, these. Eileen's asking, are the shears only used to cut solder? That's a really good question. Will it damage other cutters? It won't. These are some of the other cutters that I use to cut solder. Hang on, I'll grab them. I've got these. I've got these. Let me grab something else. I've even got these here. Okay, so I could use. This is this Kiba cutter, really heavy duty, right? So I could use this, it's to cut wire, but I could cut solder as well. I could just nip right into the solder and then cut them off so they fringe right off, right? Your friend and mine, the Joyce Chen kitchen shears, right? I have these, I love them. I love them because they're tapered. These will work. But see the difference in the tips here? I really like these because they're so sharp. I can get really uniform small pallions of solder here. And then these are my French shears that I've had forever and ever. I've used these a lot to cut solder. Again, the tips are pretty nice and pointed, but these from Xuron, it's a fairly new tool from them. Fairly new meaning maybe in the last 5 years, 3 years, something like that. So I like them. I like them a lot. So I'm going to go ahead and spray some flux. I use Cuprinil flux almost all the time. You can use, there's a lot of different fluxes you can use, right? Prips, different spray fluxes, Handy Flux, whatever. But I use this Cuprinol because it's both a barrier flux, which means it prevents fire scale and fire stain on the top of your metal, as well as a flow flux. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and add my little pallions here. And I'm going to come in and I'm going to just add them to, a lot of times I just dump them on the back, and then I'm going to push them into place. Let me get a little tighter so you guys can see this. There we go. That's not too bad, I think. Yeah, Michelle is saying she loves Xuron. I do too. I love those guys. US tools, made in Maine. Now, I could pick solder these, right, by heating it up and dropping the little balls into place. And I'll do that. That's a good trick. And I may have to come back in and do that anyway, depending on the flow of this solder. You need less solder than you think. Okay, so again, let me see if I can get a little tighter in here for you. That's not, there we go. That's not too bad. And I'm working on this rotating soldering pan that has pumice in it. I have a Solderite solder board on it. I like this Solderite as a soldering surface. It's not bad. You can use whatever works for you, whatever your favorite is. Sometimes I use a charcoal block. I like a charcoal block a lot too. I know this is a little bit like watching paint dry, but I want you to see this in real time. So I'm almost halfway done there. And you can see that I just have, I'm placing these, I don't know, about 1/4 of an inch apart maybe. And remember how I sanded that rim on the piece? And so it really gives me a nice place to set this solder. Come on, there we go. Some people like to use tweezers for setting your solder. I do have some soldering tweezers sitting here as well. Some fine tip tweezers, not like the metal tweezers that you would hold things with. But I also have kind of these little soldering tweezers. And sometimes you can just pick up the pallion, though these don't want to pick up. I think I was doing better with nudging. You just decide, again, what works right for you. So in this soldering operation, like I said, I'm using medium solder here. And it should be pretty clean. And just one more, there we go, one more right there. The idea is that you're going to flow this solder so it has a nice unbroken rim. Okay, so I'm going to lift this camera up just a little. And we've got some flux on there. I'm going to throw caution to the wind and spray one more light misting of it. Okay. Oh, that's actually a good question. The crystal katana or a sticky jewel pick? Maybe. I don't know if, I think that the solder would want to stick to the stick and not come off on the metal. It's my feeling, but it's not a bad idea to try, actually. So I'm going to go ahead and solder. I've got my Blazer Big Buddy torch here, but you could, I've got down here, I've got a whole bunch of different torches, right? I've got my, you know, a bunch of different butane torches. So use the one, you want one that's fairly large, that has a pretty big nozzle to it, right? So it has a nice, so that the flame path is nice and wide. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about soldering before I turn on this torch. Remember, there's a couple of rules of soldering that if you remember them, you're going to be golden. And if you have worked through the samplers in my book, Simple Soldering, you have mastered this or are on your way to mastering it, right? But remember, the number one thing to remember here is that it's the heat of the metal and not the flame of the torch that causes the solder to flow, right? So this metal has to be brought up to soldering temp evenly, and then once it hits soldering temp, that solder is going to heat up as well and flow. That's the first thing. Second thing to remember, that the molten solder follows the heat of the torch, right? So I want to draw this solder around this rim, right? So I'm going to, when I see that solder flow, I'm going to pull that torch flame around so that solder distributes evenly, okay? And the solder is going to flow to that hottest point, to where the torch path is going across the metal, okay? So let's do this. I'm going to fire this up, and I'll talk through as necessary. I said I'm going to fire this up. Of course, one of the things to check is if your torch doesn't light, there's a little wire here. That's your ignition wire. You want to make sure that it's pointing the right way. Well, over. It's over. Just kidding. Let me get another torch. Hang on. Hang on, everybody. It was working yesterday. Isn't that how it always is with your torch, right? This one might need to be filled. Hold, please, as my friend Francesca says. Hold. It's a good thing I've got, there we go, that I've got about 50 torches in this place. Let me go ahead and fill this, though I like to let the torch rest a little bit beforehand. That one just may be the ignition, I don't know, just needs a little bit of fiddling with, so. There we go. Yep, there we are. So I'm going to come in and pop on this torch, as I said earlier. With the feathery part of this flame, I have it over here, it's kind of hard to see, but with the feathery part of the flame, I'm going to come in and I'm going to dry that flux. If I get that flux drying too quickly, it'll sizzle kind of, right? And these pallions will fly off everywhere, okay? So I just want to introduce the heat kind of slowly, but once it's dried and heated, then I want to get my torch in fast because, oh, see, I had one fly off, because I don't want to lose the flux here. So I'm going to push that one back into place. What I'm going to do for that one is I'm going to ball it up. Get it on my pick. There's another one here. Here we go. Ball it up. And lay it down right there. Okay, that one's back. I think all of the rest of them are intact. So I'm going to come in a little tighter and see how my metal is coming up to temperature. And see where the path of the flame is on the outside of the rim, not in the center of the piece. And I'm going to get a little tighter in, a little closer with that sweet spot. And see how the solder balls up and then it flows. Okay. And I can see here, I'm missing a piece here. I think I've got some solder on my pick, which is good. I've got another little piece of solder right there. I'm going to grab it, touch it down. Blow it out. There we go. It looks like I can use one more over here. Let's see, one little tiny solder ball right there. Grab it, put it, touch it down. There we go. Now, once your solder is flowing, you can also move it a little bit with your pick. This is copper that I'm using, so it takes up a lot of heat. If this were sterling or fine silver, you'd have to be a little more careful. Do I have any more solder joins on here? Bring this whole thing up to temperature again. I'm going to move that solder where I want it. There we go. Now it's a good idea to have, and I'm going to turn this off. It's a good idea to have a little more solder prepared than you needed, because I want to add, I'm just going to cut a little bit more. Let me quench this and pickle it. It's pretty hot. There we go. Grab it and quench. There we are. And I have some pickle prepared in the crock pot. You remember that from last time. I've got a little bit of solderite board on here, which I don't love, but it just comes off with the flick of my fingernail. So bear with me here just a second while I get that off. That's the one drawback about the solderite board. I mean, I was really heating this sucker because it's copper, right? So I can really get away with that, you know, superheating it. But then I also, when you overheat a solderite board, sometimes it'll come off on your piece, which isn't the result you want. But I'm going to go ahead, drop it in, put it down. Let's do another round. I've got time. This will be one of the last little things I'll do here, and I'll put it together. But I want this to be structurally sound, so I'm not gonna rush it. I'm going to cut a few more solder pallions here, just so I have them ready. Well, that's in the pickle. I'll put them down in this little cup. Yeah, I just love this just a little tiny thing. Again, one of my students gave it to me at a show, and I think she told me at the time what it was, but I couldn't tell you what it was used for. There we go. Okay, so that's ready. All right. So now, oh, am I frozen? No, it's okay. I think we're all right. Let me get this piece out of the pickle. My pickle's pretty hot, so it works pretty well, pretty fast here. Let me wipe it all off with the rag I've got in my pocket. And the book, I'll flash it for you. I'll grab it. It's called Simple Soldering, and it's put out by Interweave Press. You can find it right on Amazon. I should have put a link in, but I didn't. But you can find it right there. So you can see with that heating, I think I need just a couple of little places here. So I'm just going to go ahead and spray and add just a little more solder. Donna's saying someone recommended I try solder made for copper. Oh, that's a whole other ball game. Hold that thought, okay? And let me get this ready to go, and I'll come back to that. Let me take a few of these out. There we go. So this is ready. I'm going to dry that flux on here. Pick soldering is a good way. It's fast. See how fast that is? I grabbed it, I balled up that little piece of solder, and then I just placed it where I wanted it to go. Sometimes, come up on my pick, please. There we go. There's that one. So let's heat, and then I think I want one more over here. So I put those little pallions on my solderite, and then I can pick them up with the tip of my pick. Come on. I think this pick is also a little gummy. There it went. And let's place it right there. I want it to go right there. Okay. So now, let me switch hands here, and I'm going to really heat this up. And those last little pieces of solder that I placed, there we go, will flow where I want them to go. I said will flow. That might have been a piece of solder right there. There we are. Okay. Perfect. So now I'm going to go ahead and quench this up. And throw this in the pickle so it's clean. Okay. Oh, perfect. Thank you so much for linking the book. It's Simple Soldering, A Beginner's Guide to Jewelry. While that's pickling, let me see if I think I've got a copy here somewhere. I believe I do. Bear with me here just a second and I'll grab it. It's this one. You take that solo layout out. Let me go this way. Here it is. Looks like this. Simple Soldering. And you can grab it right on Amazon. So a lot of you, I've had a couple of you this week show me the samplers that you've been working on, that you've been working through the samplers. So it's awesome. So I love it when you share those. So by all means, share them. I love it. So let's go back over here and let's finish up with this piece. Okay. So sometimes I say a little prayer to the soldering gods to make sure that things are working out for me okay, but let's hope. You know, if at first this piece does not succeed, it's really okay, right? You can come in, you can add the little solder and stuff that you need for it to flow. So don't freak out about this too much, okay? I'm just going to I need to grab the lid, the top. Bear with me here just a second. And we're going to go ahead and fit the two pieces together to make sure that everything is sitting together nicely. Let me grab this, and then I'll come back and view. Okay. Now, I know, let me see that there. There we go. Here's the back with the vent. Here's the top. And I'm checking all the way around to make sure I've got a good clean solder join. Okay, so I'm going to come in and, oh, you know what I need to do? I'm going to open it and flux. I'm just going to spray a little bit of flux. There we go. Now close it back. Whoops. And of course, I dropped the front. Let me get that. I told you this was going to be an on-the-fly demo. It's so flush that it was hard for me to pick up. There we go. Oh, thank you. Tam is saying, it's the best book ever for soldering. Thank you so much. It's so nice of you. It also has a DVD that it comes with. I don't know if anybody still has a DVD player, but a lot of your computers still do. So I have a whole bunch of demos in there as well. So now this is ready to go. I've got my sweat soldering that I did on the inside. I've fluxed it. I'm going to spray a little more flux along the outside. We're going to come in and we're going to heat. Now I'm going to heat just as I did the solder. I'm going to come around on the edges of the piece. Okay, so I'm going to fire up that torch, dry the flux, and come in, get a little tighter with my torch here. And what we're going to be looking for is that ribbon of silver to flow and seal this piece up. And then I will address the copper solder. I can see it's coming up to temperature. It's getting that kind of red glow. I think it translates pretty well onto the camera. And I can see that join sealing up and I'm pulling that solder around. There we go. I'm going to let that sit for a moment and cool. Okay. So now once this piece is done, once it's cooled just a little bit, I'm going to bring it over to the quench cup and I'm going to quench it. And then we're going to pickle it. Now with the, and I check it now before it goes in the pickle, and you can see it's all soldered together there, nice and tight. Okay. You are going to get pickle inside this piece, but we're gonna address that later. Okay. First, we're just going to bring this in and clean it. Okay. So I'm going to drop it into my pickle pot and let it clean. And let me talk to you a little bit about copper solders and why I don't love them. Okay. Okay. So with copper solder, there is copper solder. You can get it in a paste form, and I think I've got some even in here that I rarely use. This one might be brass, or is it copper? No, it's phosphorus copper. It's like a paste solder. The thing is it's not a color match. Okay, when you solder with this copper paste solder, it comes out gray. It's kind of a silvery gray color, right? It's not copper. And it only comes in one strength, like one, right? It doesn't come in easy, medium, and hard. It only comes in, this is probably equivalent to about an easy flow solder. So if you're doing something with copper that has multiple, you need multiple soldering steps, right? Like the two that I did here, I did medium, and then I'm going to use easy for the next one. I wouldn't be able to do that with this because it only has one flow point. The other thing is this solder, I find it's kind of brittle. And so it doesn't like I was doing some rings, some just band rings, and I thought, oh, I'm going to try this and see how it works. The seam didn't stay soldered when I went to hammer. I found it to be kind of brittle. So my suggestion is when you're using the multiple, when you're using silver solder, because that's what that is on copper or brass or whatever, you use the smallest amount that you can get away with, right? And you use it very neatly, and you file your seams. If your seams are flush, that solder is going to flow up into the seam, seal that seam, right? And you're going to have a flush join. When you go to file that seam, you're going to file that solder, that visible solder away, and you're not going to see it. Okay, so you just do a really good cleanup. So let me see, let me get my, come over here to my pan, my pickle pot, and let's take this out. And what I do to get pickle out of a piece like this, and let me go back to this workstation view so you guys can see it. Here it is right here. I've got a little bit of silver solder, a little bit of cleanup to do here where it came out. But that's easy because this is just clean. I'll show you. We'll do some cleanup on this next week. Okay. And so you can see here in the back with the hole, that's where the pickle. So the last step that I do on this guy is I'll put it in some boiling water and I'll boil it. It'll take, the pickle will come out, and then I'll dry it. So putting this in a little vat of, you know, a little pan of boiling water for a moment or two will flush all of that pickle out of the center. So you don't need, but I'm not going to do it yet because this still has work to do. So it'll be my last thing. Oh, and yeah, on copper bangle to color match, you use rose gold solder. I think that's actually a great idea because what I use, I have it here. Where is it? I also use, I have some 14 karat gold solder that I use on brass. I know, also controversial, right? I think it's a good idea if you want to use, you know, for color match. I'm going to have to find some rose gold solder with cadmium. I'm going to have to find it. That's a great, great, great tip. And I'm sure Brio, I'm sure that's where you got it, right? I'm guessing. So this does need to be, since my overheating odyssey here with this, we did have some of the solder flow out, but that's easily cleaned. Okay, so our next step is going to be cleaning this sucker and then attaching, looking at a bail for attachment. So that's next on this. Okay. Oh, it's Stuller. Okay, good to know. That is great to know. Stuller has it. Okay. Well, let me come up here. Perfect. All righty. Well, thanks you guys so much for joining me for this installment, part 2. What we looked at today are some designs. We looked at some old books. I'll flash them one more time for some inspiration. The Victorian jewelry book here. Peter Hinks wrote the introduction. And then my beloved from my childhood, this old Sears Roebuck. And we looked at the $1.98 jewelry tools on the inside. And then, of course, we ended up, thank you guys for mentioning it, my book here, Simple Soldering. Okay. So thanks, you guys, again for joining me. You can, as always, follow me on different social. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll see when I post when I'm going to do these broadcasts and stuff in my work. It's a great place to go here. My Facebook group, Create with Kate Richbourg. All of this stuff will be in there as well. And here I am live from my studio in Beaducation. Not Beaducation. I talked about Beaducation for the tools, but here at beadshop.com. And you can see my bead shop videos every Wednesday and Friday at 10:30 a.m. Pacific, where we focus on things more of a bead nature. Okay, so I hope to see you guys in any or all of those broadcasts. I'll post again here on my social when the next installment of this series, this kind of off-the-cuff series is going to be. So thank you guys so much, as always, for joining me. And I will see you all soon. Have a great rest of your weekend, everybody. See you soon.